I was into physics. I was into physics and math. And I thought when I was younger, since I understood physics very well, I would try to apply it to different areas of life because we're all trying to understand life and how it works. And what if the laws of physics work? Does it apply to everyday life? So you're going to learn 4 of the laws of physics tonight, 4 of them, and I'm using PowerPoint. So I think technically you can write off tonight's show as continuing education credit. I'm pretty sure. So keep your ticket stubs. So the first law of physics is the conservation of matter, which says matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Now, does this hold true in real life? My answer is no. No, it does not, and I have 2 examples. The first one is babies. Babies. When my son was little, he could drink 4 ounces of milk and poop 8 ounces. How is that possible? Look at that diaper. He's creating matter in that diaper. He's got double his body weight in poop. They're little matter creators. That's what babies are. The second example of matter cannot be created that does not hold true is toothpaste tubes, right? You had a toothpaste tube, right? You think it's empty. You squeeze it, and another day comes out. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't think so. And then the next day, it happens again. Then it's like a week later, and you're like, oh, my God. And then at some point, you don't want to give up on it. You're like squeezing. You get the pliers out. I'm not giving up on this toothpaste tube. The conservation of momentum. The conservation of momentum. This is a new one. Hopefully this one's funny. Some of these jokes, engineers, are alpha test. If they fail, I've learned something in the failure. Conservation of momentum says, for a collision occurring between object 1 and object 2, the total momentum of the 2 objects before the collision is equal to the total momentum of the 2 objects after the collision. And physicists always use balls colliding. I don't know why. It's some sexual thing, I'm sure. But if a ball of m1 and velocity 1 strikes ball m2 of v2 and they hit, they will go in opposite directions in this case, and the smaller ball will move faster and the bigger ball will move slower. Conservation of momentum, given by this little formula here. Now, how could this possibly apply to regular life? Well, I used this to get out of playing football when I was in high school. My dad wanted me to play football because I was big. So you should play football. I said, no, because I understand the conservation of momentum, Dad, okay? I weighed 190 pounds. If this guy who weighs 380, which is a normal size for a football player, if he hits me going 10 miles an hour, I will fly that way going 20 miles an hour. And that's assuming he doesn't knock my head off. If he knocks my head off, my head weighs about 12 pounds. He hits me, my body moves at 9 miles, my head flies off at 181 miles an hour. My head could kill someone. So for everybody else's safety, I am not playing football. The law of motion, your third law of physics, says for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every action there is an equal, and you know this law. This is a pretty obvious one. Like a balloon, for example. Okay, the air comes out of the balloon that way, so the balloon goes that way, right? Equal and opposite reaction. A cannon is a perfect example of this. Cannonball is really heavy, so when the cannonball goes that way, the cannon will actually go back that way, which is why in early days of cannon uses, a lot of guys got run over. It was not pretty. So I don't know why, but I decided to apply this to something very important to me, and that was my marriage. I wanted to see an equal and opposite reaction applied. So, if my wife says to me, have you gained a few pounds? I will say, probably. Very small reaction. Now let's flip it around. If I say to my wife, have you gained a few pounds? She will shoot me with a cannonball. That is not an equal and opposite reaction. And then finally, this is, I have to read this one. This is the nerdiest thing I've ever tried. So here we go. Newton's law of gravity says every particle attracts every other particle with a force which is proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between their centers, given by this magical formula right here, okay? Mass 1, mass 2, there's a gravitational force. The G is the gravitational constant, does not change. Mass 1, mass 2, and the closer things get, the larger, smaller that number gets, the bigger the gravitational force is. Now, when you think about it, what is that exactly? That is the law of attraction. So you could apply that to couples. It's the law of attraction. So, if person of mass 1 and person of mass 2 are actually attracted by this formula, that's an attraction. Does this work? Well, that would say, if that were the case, as that person gains weight, they become more attractive. No. In my experience, that does not hold true. But it does explain one phenomenon I always wondered about. Yeah, everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to put it, but have you ever seen a couple where one person is much larger than the other person? I think as that person approached that couple, they actually got caught in their gravitational pull. And I'm not sure whether it's love or gravity. We're not really positive.